Okay, alright, so what I'm going to do for the next half an hour or so is go through the new chapter in Learn Go Test, which is called Reading Files. So in this chapter, obviously we're going to learn how to read some files, and we're going to do it in a test-driven way, iterative development and all that other kind of stuff that I go on about in the book. So the scenario is we're pretending we're writing some blog software with one of our friends, and the idea is that someone using this blog software writes their posts in Markdown, they dump them in some folder, and then when the web server starts up, it reads the folder, parses all of the files, creates these kind of post structures like these, and then that gets sent to some kind of HTTP handler which will be used to power the website. We're not concerned about that, we're just concerned with parsing the data. So the reason this is an interesting thing to look at is in Go 1.16, which is the current version of Go, they released some new stuff to do with file systems. So the headline ticket thing for all of this was embedding files. So now you can embed files into your binary. And the way that works under the hood is like it's like a file system within your binary. You can kind of use the files in your embedded code as if they're normal files. And to facilitate all of this, they've created this new, I'll make the text a little bit bigger. They've created this new Iofs package that defines the FS interface. So let's have a quick look at that. And as with all good interfaces in Go, it's just one method, which is open a file or not. So it's an abstraction for a read-only tree of files. The standard library has been adapted to make use of this interface as appropriate. And basically there are a number of implementations of this interface in the Go standard library now. So there's the embed implementation. Zip Reader also implements it. dirfs is just a normal file system. And interestingly, there's also a test implementation of it as well. So we can use that for our own code so that we can write some code to read from the file system, but not have to actually rely on a concrete file system. So with that, I thought I'd just show you this FS package. So you can kind of see that there's a bunch of sort of functions that take this FS thing. So the idea is you make an FS and then you use these functions as a standard library to do interesting things, whatever you need to do. So let's get started. So we want to have some kind of code that takes some kind of directory and spits out a slice of posts. So I've created a new project, nothing particularly fancy. It's got a Go mod with that, and naturally we start with a test. So in Go, you have to have underscore test in your file name, so I guess we'll call this blog posts test. Our package is going to be blog posts test, and the important thing is we're using this underscore test technique, and if you're not familiar with that, what that means is that our code will be exercising the code from a consumer's point of view. It doesn't let us access unexported things from our hypothetical blog post package. And the reason I like that as a sensible default is it means that your tests can only be coupled to exported things from a package, which means you're less likely to couple your test to implementation detail. So let's start writing a test, blog posts. So when we're writing a test, I think a lot of people think writing tests is tedious and things, but I like writing tests because it lets us be a bit more imaginative and think about what we want from a consumer's point of view. So I want to do something like posts, call some kind of blog post package, and do, I don't know, posts from FS, and we'll pass in some kind of FS. So what is an FS? Well, this is where we use this testing thing, which I've now lost. Test FS. So let's make an FS. So I think you just do map FS. Yeah, that's the one. And then under the hood, map FS. Oh, sorry. Is just a map of string, which is a file name, to a map file, which just has whatever data you want in the file. So we'll say that we'll have one file called hello world.md, and that can have some data of byte array of hello world, and then we'll add another one in called hello Twitch. So we want to get some posts out of it. And if we take our requirements as is, we've imagined that we want some kind of structure like this. But in order to write enough code to effectively open every file, parse out all the data, deal with all these edge cases and things, that's actually quite a lot of work. And what we want to do is work in small, achievable steps. So rather than worrying about actually parsing the data out at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut down the scope, but do it vertically. So I'm going to only test that we actually get 2 posts out, but I'm not going to worry about the contents of the post. This will put us in the right direction, but it will mean that we won't have to take this giant leap of a step where we have a failing test for like half an hour or so. When you're doing TDD well, it feels like you're always making small achievable steps, and you're going to source control like every 10 minutes, just making a useful commit. So if you're ever in a state where you feel like writing this test is going to take me ages, and it's going to take me ages to make it pass, try to break the problem down a little bit more. Like, use your imagination to think, what can I do to push ourselves in the right direction, but not have to take such a giant leap? So we're going to say if the len of posts doesn't equal the length of the map. So in other words, if the number of posts we get out isn't the same as the number of items in the map, then we're going to say expected blah posts got blah posts. Len posts, len fs. So this feels like a decent start. So we're saying, also, I find given when then quite useful when I'm coaching people, so I'm just going to do that. So given some kind of file system, when we call our post from FS, then we expect to have the same number of posts as we do files in the file system. So now we've written a test. That feels like a nice consumer-centric way of looking at the problem, and it's definitely going to force us to write some useful code. So now I'll try and run the test. And naturally enough, it says undefined blog post. So IntelliJ isn't quite that clever, so we'll make a new file called blog posts. Yep, it has managed to figure that out at least. Oh, blog post. Should be blog posts. Yeah, I don't know. But at least now it's saying, yeah, import that fella. So we've now imported that. Next error, so let's just try running it again. Now it's complaining that this doesn't exist. Can it be clever? No. Okay, so we need to write a function to get the test working. But we're not trying to make the test pass, we just want to see it running. At the moment it's not even compiling. So we need to make some function, blog post from fs. I'm going to try running it again. Posts. I mean, you're not getting these plurals very correct, am I? Too many arguments in call to blah. So hopefully at this point, yeah, please do that. So what that did was it added our argument in there for us. I call it file system. Still unhappy with us because it's saying it's used as a value. We need to make it return something, so we're going to say return back some posts. Again, obviously it's like, what the hell's a post? Yes, please create a type post. So struts, but we're going to resist the temptation to put fields in. We're just going to say, yeah, just return us back some posts. I don't really care what's inside it at the moment. So try and run again. Yeah, missing return. Let's just do nil. And now finally our test is actually compiling and running, and it's failing how we expect, and the error message looks pretty good to me. Expected 0 posts. Got 2 posts. That's not the right way around, is it? And this is why we should check these things. I promise that wasn't deliberate. There you go. Expected 2 posts, got 0 posts. Excellent. Okay, so now we can write some code. So there is a function that's been introduced called readdir, and it doesn't take a genius to understand what that does, but yeah, it's one of these new functions that takes our file system thing, and it doesn't care what kind of file system you're using, whether it's an embedded one or one of these test ones or a real file system, which is lovely. And then it takes a name, so we'll just say dot as in the current directory, we will take this lot. Yeah, duh. And you can see now our idealized world of what our code should look like has already been kind of ruined, because obviously reading a directory can have errors because you go into a file system. But it's important not to get distracted at this point. It's very tempting to start messing around with the tests and stuff and changing this to return an error and things. But at the moment, we're just trying to make our current test pass. So we're just going to ignore it for now. So we've got our dir. I suppose what we need to do is make some posts. And we'll just loop through dir. Don't need any of that at the moment. I'm just going to range over them, and we'll say post equals append posts, and we'll just make an empty post and return posts. And it passes. Cool. So at this point, once you've made the test pass, we've actually moved in a positive direction, and now is our chance to refactor. But before refactoring, what I like to do is just do a commit. Because I just want to be at a point where if I go down a rabbit hole with my refactoring, which all of us have done at some point, where we start refactoring and we get into a bit of a mess, we just want to make sure we can get back to safety as quickly as possible. So this will be reading files and creating empty posts. So just by doing this, not only do we have a test to prove that things are working, but source control is also helping us out. So we committed our code. Let's go back to the project. So now we've got some refactoring to do. In truth, there's not a lot of refactoring to do, but at the moment we're depending on a concrete type. So if we wanted to use this function outside of our test, it's not particularly reusable. You couldn't actually use it with a different kind of file system. So we just need to make it so it depends on fs.fs. Rerun our tests. We're good. I don't think there's anything else we could do, so I think at this point I would amend the commit that we had. There's no point making a commit just for that tiny little change. Cool. So we've made our first positive step. Now it seems like the story kind of tells itself. It's like clearly what we want to do is just work through each field and make sure that we parse it out correctly. So first of all, we need to change the test data a bit to actually match what we're looking for in real life. So we'll add title, hello TV world. And in this one, we'll add title, hello Twitchy world, I suppose. And then we want to do some kind of assertion, I guess, on the first one. So we want to say something like, if posts 0 doesn't equal, and we'll make up some post that we're looking for. And we'll say the title should be that lot. Oh, sorry, I don't normally develop on Windows, and therefore I'm my muscle memory isn't quite correct. You go there. What has it done? So if that doesn't equal that, t.rf expected. What on earth is this doing? Jeez, go away. Expected. Oh no, sorry. We got posts. Oh, sorry. Sent v. I think that hash v thing is nice actually. Want percent hash v. And I suppose what we'll do is I'm doing it again. Press the wrong buttons. Alright, we kind of struggled a little bit there, but that reads roughly how we'd want. The expected first post will be a post with a title says hello to world, and then we just do some kind of check there. So if we try and run the test, rather unsurprisingly, unknown field title. Let's ask the IntelliJ to put that in there for us. Cool. Try and run the test again. And now you can see that we got blog post title with an empty string, but we wanted that. Cool. Okay, so at this point we need to now do something with these things in the file system. So let's say, I don't know why that keeps popping up. So we'll say F for file, I suppose. Do that. And what I want to do is, I hate it when I see for loops with tons of code in them. I feel like most of the time you want at most like 1 or 2 lines of code, but anything more than that, it starts to look a bit nasty and a bit difficult to read. So I want to do something like make post from file, something like that. Yes, please. And IntelliJ pretty clever here, right? Like it knows what we're looking for here. So do that, do that, do that. So what do we need to do? So we've got a file entry. I think, we actually need to pass our file system through. My mistake. So we need to pass through file system because we need our file system to be able to open the file. This can help us, so that's fine. File system though. So we know that the one method of file system is open. So we can do that. That would be our blog file. And again, errors have come to ruin our day, but again, we mustn't get distracted at this point. So we got our blog file, blah, blah, blah. So we basically just need to read the contents, don't we? So to do that, we can do io.read all blog file. That returns us some stuff. Blog contents, file contents. Naming her. And again, we got this error, which is a bit of a pickle. So we've got our file contents. I'm pretty sure that just returns us a byte array. Yeah. So what do we need to do now? So we've effectively got a byte array of this lot. So what we want to do is effectively take this from the file contents. So we could do something like the title is strings.trim prefix file contents, and the prefix we want to trim away is that. Then we can do return post title. Try and run our test. Hello Twitchy world. But well, when I wrote this, that didn't happen to me. So what have I done wrong? Make post from file system f.name, return post. I'm a bit confused, if I'm honest. Well, the usual. Kiss, post. What's going on? Hello Twitchy world, hello TDD world. Why is hello TDD world getting processed? Let's just try that. Calling shenanigans here. I'm not sure what's going on. Why is it? Is this some kind of... I'm going to park that for now, because I've never seen that before. Let's press on. So that works. Get rid of U. Get rid of it then. So so that's passing. So we're good. Let's do our commit. So what we're doing now, we're extracting tiles. Super. Now we need to do our refactoring stage. So this does feel a little bit messy to me. I don't like that this make post from file is concerned with opening files and kind of processing the content. So I'd prefer to kind of grab all that and make a method called post. or new post. Let's call it new post. Not entirely sure why I was insistent on passing through error there, but we can forgive IntelliJ. So we're going to pass through, so we're going to create new post. We've kind of split this out a little bit. But when you're kind of extracting out functions and methods and things, you should always be careful about the interface of these things. And I don't mean interface in terms of like, Golang interface, but the interface of calling the thing. So at the moment, we take through an FS file. But if we look at how we actually use this thing, we only use it here in IO read all. And if we look at the definition of that, that just takes a reader. So we don't need to couple this function to files specifically. We don't need all of this stuff. All we need is the reading part. So if there's no point in coupling ourselves to things, we can loosen that coupling just by doing that. We run our tests, and obviously things are still working brilliantly. So we can probably take that same approach here, because if you look at this, we're passing through a dir entry, but all we ever do is call f.name. And it just seems like it's just quite a lot of ceremony to me. I'd rather just do f.name here. We can then just do f. I would say f is not the most brilliant of names. File name. Run the tests, and we're good. Finally, files, whilst aren't technically necessary, you don't have to have multiple files in Go and things. It's not like Java where it's like one class per file and things. But clearly there is a kind of differentiation between this kind of messing around a file system to kind of read posts and do things, and then this idea of a post and creating a post from a reader. So I'd prefer, just from a sort of organizational point of view, just to move new post and post, like post related things, to a file called post, should we say, and still the same package. But to me, this just feels like a slightly cleaner way of organizing things. We've got this idea of a post, of a lump of data, and we create a new post from a reader. It doesn't really care about file system or things. You could hypothetically see this function getting exported at some point, and then users can just create posts from anything. It doesn't have to be a file. It could be from anywhere on the internet, I suppose, or from a HTTP request, say. So I just like to be able to separate these things out. We should probably just run the test again. Cool. So let's commit. Don't forget our unversion files. But yeah, I'd make this an amend. Okay, so we've got to the point here where we've kind of ignored errors twice. I was maybe a bit naughty. I think you could argue that maybe before extracting out the titles, probably should have handled the erroring first. So let's handle errors. We know that, by taking this iterative approach, it's kind of flagged to the point that, yeah, we've got errors. So let's start handling them. So instead of just ignoring it, we're just going to do this. Actually, let's do it from the test first. So we know in our test that the real API is we get back an error. And we want to assert in this particular case that if there's an error that we should bail, because we don't expect to see an error. If error doesn't equal nil, t.fail, we'll just bomb out. So we try and run the test, and yeah, it's complaining because obviously this thing doesn't return two things. I wonder if this thing, yeah, thank you. I'm pressing the wrong buttons again, sorry. For some reason it's inferred that we want two arrays, two slices of posts. That's not quite what we want. We want an error. If that happens, and it would say error, rather, do the normal dance. Yeah. Rerun our tests, and we're good. Now you could argue that I haven't tested this particular line of code, right? If I remove this, our tests still pass, because at the moment we've got a file system that always works. And it's always a bit of a kind of judgment call. But for me, if I'm not doing anything interesting with the error, I don't really want to worry about testing it. I just think it's unnecessary overhead. If we're doing something interesting with the error, then sure, let's start testing it. And to be clear, our approach makes it very easy to test. So actually, for the sake of argument, hello. Yeah, all right, we're back. I don't know, my mic decided to disconnect because Bluetooth is rubbish. So what I was going to say was, let's just write a test for the error case, just so we can see how simple it is. So func test, let's say error. Test posts. Maybe there's a chance to use subtext actually. So for the lack of a better name, I'm going to put in just happy path, as I don't want to agonize over naming at this particular juncture. And we'll say t.run failing file system. So we need to write a test where we've got some kind of failing file system and assert that there's an error. So doing test doubles and go is super easy. So we're going to make some kind of failing fs. And we'll say, so we won't get any posts, but we'll get an error from blog posts dot viewpost from fs, and we'll pass in a failing file system. And what's happening here, actually we'll carry on writing our test, and we're going to say if error is nil, t dot error expected and error didn't get one. So we try and run this test. It's complaining because our failing fs doesn't implement fs.fs. Well, if you've got a good computer that can do things for you, you can just press buttons like this and it works. So we'll just then do return nil errors.new. Oh no, I always fail. So what we should expect now is this test should compile, run and fail. Of course, it's because I'd left that in. If we try again, it fails. Cool. So now we see it fail because we aren't handling the errors from reader failing. So instead, we'll put you back in, you're back in. Lovely. Cool. So we tested the failing file system scenario as well. So let's commit that. Seems like a worthwhile thing. Handle reader failing. No, just commit please. Okay, so back to our happy path. We've managed to get out of the title. Seems like the next thing to do would be the description. So I want these on a new line. Normally it offers to do that. I don't know why it didn't. So we'll add description. At this point you can kind of see how the TD flow kind of works quite nicely, because all we need to do is just keep adding fields onto our post thing and then just checking it works how we want it to work. We'll need to update our test area a bit. I'm curious about this, but I don't want to get bogged down with it. So we'll do that. And we'll say description. Just do that. So we expect a description of lol. Usual stuff. Run the test. Unknown field description. Yes, please. Try and run the test again. Test now runs, but it doesn't pass. Okay. And because we did our refactoring earlier when we kind of pull things apart and things, we've actually got like a really obvious and clear place to do this kind of code. So our first approach just to get the title out was fine just for title, but at this point we now need to be able to read through lines of code. I'm just seeing some some comments in the chat. So let's just pause a second. Is this the usual approach to combine different test cases within a single test function? Wouldn't it be better to make a separate test function? The way to be fair, I don't know if it's idiomatic or not. The way I look at it is I like to have a test around a given unit. This is a poor name actually. I'd say this should be test new blog posts, because that's, or post from FS actually, test posts from FS, because we're testing this particular function in this package. So for me, I want to see one test for a given function or a method, but then within that I might want to exercise different scenarios, and that's where I personally use t.run to kind of group things together. And Riyad Tani says, I think if the test cases are related, they should fall under the same test. Yeah, so I kind of see these things as related. They're testing the same thing, but just under different conditions. But obviously, I don't think this is the sort of thing that I think other people will have different opinions. This is what works for me. But yeah, I don't think... it's not a hill I'm willing to die on, so if someone strongly feels another way, can describe why it's better, then I'll just go fine. I'll just write another test. But yeah, cool question. So anyway, we're back to this. So we got our description. The test is failing, but well, no, the test is failing, and that is good. So Go has a nice way of reading through files line by line. Because before we just did read all because the file just effectively had that, so we could get away with just reading all. But now we need to read line by line. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to comment out this business, because we're kind of starting again in a way. So we're going to create a buff.io.new scanner, and happily it takes a reader. And this is the thing with Go, and this is what I find so pleasant about Go, is the standard library is really rich and it has a lot of good thought put behind it. And if you the more you do Go and commit yourself to learning the standard library, the more you see that it all kind of just sticks together very easily if you sort of commit to using and reusing the interfaces it provides. By using IO Reader, I open up the standard library to let me do all sorts of interesting things without really having to change my code. So we're going to create a buff.io scanner. Buff.io, buff.vo, as Dave's put in the chat there. So we create our scanner, and scanners scan, funnily enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to scan. We're going to then take our title from that, and we can probably just grab some of this. But rather than file contents, we'll do scanner.text. That's basically a duplication here, which tells us something, but at this point we're just trying to make it pass. So say description, and then we return post. Yes, please. Title, description. Run our tests. Cross our fingers. Because I changed the name of the test, the IDE is a little bit upset with me, so let's do that. Okay, not quite. Got hello TV world, blah blah blah. Description. Interesting. I think I forgot to scan. Yeah. And I promise you I'm not making these mistakes. I am just a bad software developer. And this is why TDD is so great, because by defining what success is and telling the computer what success is, we can ask the computer, what does success mean, really easily. If I didn't have tests around this, that kind of stupid mistake I made there could, take like 5-10 minutes, an hour to figure out what I'd done wrong. Like easily, I've seen developers get stuck on stupid little things all the time. And normally it's a result of not having success precisely defined and a fast feedback loop around it. The fact that I could just jab my fingers on the keyboard and be told what I've done wrong is really quite liberating. So we've got our passing code. Obviously we don't need this anymore. Let's quickly do that, as if deleting comments would break the code, but still, we've got passing tests, we've moved forward, so let's just add another commit, and this is reading description from file. Go away. Otherwise whinging about, and I don't care. So can we do any refactoring here? Clearly, there's a bit of repetition here. This whole scan and get some text, and this trimming prefix business. Can we make some kind of IDE is not helping me out as much as I want. So we're going to make a function here called readLine, and it's going to be a function that takes a prefix, I suppose, as string, and it's going to return as a string. And we're going to encapsulate the idea of scanning a line and then returning prefix. And then what that means we should be able to do is just go read line, yeah, go to U, go to U, we rerun, test and passing. Now, some of you might be sitting there going, well, that didn't really save any lines of code. That's not always the point of refactoring. It's not about, even the fact that we did some drying of code and things didn't really save any lines of code, but that's not really the point. What I'm trying to do is make the code read a bit more declaratively and try and separate out some of the details so it reads a little bit clearer. So someone can open this up, see that we create a scanner, there's some kind of read line thing, and then we read a line, return a post. To me, this reads a lot nicer. And you can kind of see that the fact that we know we're going to be reading more lines, so creating a readline function to me makes sense. So all our tests are passing, we've refactored things, I think everything's looking okay. The tests are bothering me a little bit in that, I don't know, just this feels a bit messy to me. I want to just make a little helper here called assert post. It won't take an array of posts, it'll just take a got and a want. We'll take you out. Always remember to put your helpers on. Got. Oopsie. Got. Want. I can do that. I can just inline that. I don't know, that to me feels a little bit better. Assert post, we assert that the first post is this. Rerun our tests, obviously all looks good. So now we can amend our commit. Alright, fine, let's see what it's complaining about. Variable fs collides with imported package name. So it does. Okay, let's call that, I don't know, file system, I suppose. Unused parameter name. Yeah, fair. Okay. Now can we amend the commit? Just do it. Oh, we got another question in the chat. Completely off topic. Do you use build flags to run DB integration tests separately from unit tests? Yes. Yes, I have done that in the past. Because I think Peter Borgun at some point said he wants to be able to check out any given Go project and run the unit tests with Go test, // or whatever, or just be able to run the unit test really easily without having to spin up databases and things. And that seems like a reasonable goal. So yeah, I do that, yeah. That was another question. The t.helper is used to produce a correct error message in case of failing correct location in the test and not in the help function? Yeah, maybe I'll just quickly show that. So if I take out t.helper, and we'll make this test fail deliberately, so we'll just put in some, yeah, we'll do that. So if we then run the test, oh, my bad. If we do that, still, yeah, maybe we should do a certain length as well. Yeah, we should do that. So if you see here, it's complaining on line 49, which is here, which means it's not particularly easy to like when you see it fails on line 49, you're like, Well, that's not particularly helpful, because if we were calling a cert post a number of times, and if we were driving this out for a bit longer and we're doing more scenarios and things, when you see it fails on line 49 for like 3 tests, that's not particularly helpful. So yeah, the reason you put t.helper is it means that the test output will actually direct you to where it's actually failed. Okay, so we're back here, we've done description, so now it's time to do tags. Again, it's kind of just like the same stuff, but this is when the kind of rhythm of TDD feels good. So an array of strings, and we'll say it's TDD go. We need to update the test data to have that as well. Tags TDD go. Okay, same deal. Try and run the test. There's no such thing as tags. Create me that. What the hell was that? That's never happened to me before. Right, okay, we'll just add it here. Do that. Now it's complaining invalid operation, got one. Struct containing a slice of strings cannot be compared. That's quite right. You can't do that. So now we need to change our helper to be not reflect deep equal got one instead. So do that. Check our test output. So we wanted, and actually we'd noticed here that oh no, that is correct, sorry. Yeah, we got a nil slice and we wanted that stuff. Cool, failing test. And because of our previous refactoring, this is pretty easy, right? Strings.split read line tags. Oh, forgot to actually use them. And we're good. I feel a little bit bad about these magic strings here. I kind of feel like, actually, let's do the commit first. We've got passing code, must keep our discipline. So extracting tags. Yeah, I don't like these magic strings. I want them to go away. Title prefix. And I suppose they don't really need to live in here, so we can just make ugh. I don't think there is a nice way to sort of extract into global constant. I wish there was. So there you go. Rerun our tests. Yeah, cool. Amend our commit. Looking good. We're nearly there. So now we need to get the body. So again, we'll go back to our tests. Body. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to look at the Twitch chats. Yeah, I feel the pain, Dave. Well, you literally just saw me have the pain. So body, we want to prove that we can extract multiple lines of a body. So we're going to say hello world like that. And obviously we need to update our thing to have hello world. Make sure we got our capital W. Okay. Run the test. See it fail. Hopefully it won't go crazy this time. Yeah, good. It managed to add body into there correctly. Run test. Yeah, so we got nothing in our body, but we want hello/world. Okay. So we know that this is a little bit more complicated because we need to ignore these hyphens and we need to read the rest of the file. So we can't really reuse our read line thing. So we're going to say something like, I don't know, read body, and just throw our scanner at it. And ask us to make us a thing. Yep. I want that to be a string, please. So, we've been calling scanner.scan which scans down a line. But what scan does is it returns you Boolean, and it keeps returning you true until it can't scan anything else. So that's obviously quite useful, because what we want to do is basically read through each line until we get to the end. So we can use that in a for loop. We can say for scanner.scan, and that means it will carry on reading through the file until the end. And what we want to do is read, every time we scan, we want to take that line and dump it into some buffer, which will ultimately return as a string. So we'll make a buff bytes.buffer, and we'll say thumped fprint into our buffer. We don't want printf, sorry. We want to do print line because we want to keep the line. So when you scan for each line, when you do scanner.text, it takes the new line out, but we actually need the new lines. So we're going to do fmt print line scanner.text. So that will read through all of our things, and then we just return buff.string. If we run this, it's annoyed because, yeah, again, I forgot to actually use the code. Run that. Oh, it's still not passing. The reason it's not passing is because, one, we forgot to skip a line, because we need to skip the hyphens. So we do scanner.scan, skip hyphens. And our other problem is that because we're doing thumped print line, we've got a trailing new line, so we just need to remove that. So strings.trim suffix that kaboom, we're passing. Do a commit. Extracting body. Sort of. I think that's about it. I think, ladies and gents. I'm just going to check the chapter. I'll try to do it all off the top of my head. Oh, actually, one thing we could probably talk about quickly is I think I've realized why we're getting problems excuse me, with this fella. So obviously that's wrong now. So what we're going to do is we're going to add back our second markdown file. We'll call this one hello world 2. Hello to the world. Yeah, we'll just put some. So the reason I thought it might have been failing earlier, it's frustrating it's passing now, is because we're checking that the first one equals this thing, right? And we had a map fs of these two things. Now I think because it's a map, the order of which that we process the files is not deterministic. So therefore what was happening in our test is even though we defined it as this is the first one, this is the second one, when we're reading through the files, it was actually reading this one first and then this one. So I think that's what was the problem there. So a potential improvement to the test would be to make it, because actually the order of the posts in this instance doesn't matter. And interestingly, by doing this, it makes me think that I'd probably go back to my colleague and go, surely we want some kind of date field in here, right? To say, yeah, it's on the 1st of July 2021, and then this one is in, I don't know, 1st of June 2021, and then that would mean that we'd actually then, the order would matter. So that's probably what you'd do at that point. But I didn't do that in this chapter, interestingly. I just want to check there's nothing else that I did that was particularly interesting. I don't think there is. So I suppose that's just. Oh, actually, well, let's show in action, right? Because we've written this test and it's all working against a fake file system and things. It's like, yeah, big deal. You want to see your code working properly. Dan says, can you not express the map should contain X? Well, it's not so much a map, right? Because we're returning back a list or a slice of things. So yeah, what you'd probably do is you'd make it so that it says please make sure that this post exists within posts. But I think in practice what you'd do is you'd do a further iteration to say there should be date fields in this thing, and that's what determines the order of the posts. Because you don't want to use the file system as the arbiter of the order of the posts on a blog. You want the posts themselves to say, I was published on this date, so therefore I'm the most recent one or whatever. But yeah, it's a fair point. But yeah, I think we should see our code in action. So to do that, we'll make a command folder, and we'll make a program that uses our stuff. So to make programs in Go, it has to be in package main, and it has to have a main function. And we can almost copy our test, right? And this is when TDD feels right, when you can basically take the test code and then reuse that as a consumer. So we'll take this. Now, what's our file system at this point? Well, it's escaped me, os.dofs. So rather than a test one, we'll pass in a real one, posts. And we'll just say, if there's an error, log.fail. Otherwise, I guess for now we'll just print them. Fatal F, not fatal F, sorry, fail. And yeah, it can't find the thing specified, so let's just make a quick posts folder, I suppose. And we'll make a file, hello world. Oh. Fat fingered that a bit. And if we go back to here, yeah, I'll grab you. Why is it? Did I just not? Yeah. Okay. Let's see if that works. It might not, because I think, yeah, we just need to. It's not running it from the command folder, so we just need to say that. I think that's it. And huzzah! I think that's a pretty good result. So when you're writing your tests, I think the thing to really try and take away from this is that really try and take a consumer point of view. So write the test that you want to see. So I want to make some package, and I want some kind of magic function that takes a file system and gives me back some posts. And if you start from that point, rather than worrying too much about implementation details, you end up writing more focused tests around what you actually need. And then people are able to integrate with that code much simpler, because they can basically just copy your test code, put in a different dependency, and again this is showing the strength of dependency injection, and that just by doing this it makes our code simple to test and simple to reuse in various contexts. We're almost at 12. Do we have any questions or comments before I kill the stream? No? Okay, good. If you haven't seen Learn Go, I'm pretty sure you've all seen Learn Go tests. Go see Learn Go tests. I'm going to kill the stream. Thank you very much for your time. Toodles.